Okay, Mr. Phobes here. I'm going to explain the color theory behind the color interaction project. So, if you remember, you're going to have a board where you've got three studies. So, the one on the bottom should be trying to make the same color look different. And if you stare at this, you can stare at the middle line, you can start seeing the difference between the two. The top one is going to be try to make two different colors look the same, and I'm pretty close here. And then the middle one could be um, your choice of either doing another one of these or another one of these. All right, so I'm going to click out of this for the minute. Okay, so one of the things that's important is if you look at the color mix that I've got here, um, it is dominantly red because it's made up of a mixture of magenta and yellow, and then it's got a little bit of cyan in it, which desaturates it, turns it into a tertiary. It's a little bit more complex. You're going to be able to do a little bit more hue shift if it's a more complex color. One of the important things is I've started out with a ground that is a neutral gray, meaning there's no hue in it, and it's at about a 50% value. And what I want to do is I want an initial hue that's also about a 50% value. So if I select this and I turn it to grayscale, you can see that indeed they're almost exactly the same. So that's really good. I've got a very good mode here. Okay, so um, these hues are the same. And what I want to do is make them look, these two look different. So what I did is I put them on complementary grounds, and we know that yellow is a very light value and violet is a pretty dark value. That will force the value shift, and you can see for sure that this is a little lighter and this is a little darker. Well, let's see, I can play around with it a little bit and maybe force this to be a little bit darker. So that's taking there we go. Need to take a little bit more magenta out. So that got it a little bit darker. Okay. Um, let's select this ground and let's make it a little bit lighter. And what I can do in Illustrator is I'll just hit the Shift key and then drag this whole thing up a little bit. And you see it lightens it up. Now I don't want to desaturate it too much because then it'll get away from my hue shift. But if you start looking at this, you can begin to see that there is indeed, you know, a different value shift here. Um, but now the bias, if I look at this color, um, it's made up of magenta, yellow, and cyan. And you can see that the bias for this is more towards the yellow and not much cyan. But on this one, the bias is more towards the cyan and magenta. It's a little bit cooler. Um, if you stare at it long enough, this starts taking on the characteristics of the violet. Okay, so the way this one works is the hue stays the same, but you change the ground and it's going to make them apparently different. The longer you stare at this line, the more you can see their difference. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take that same hue and I'm going to try and make it look. I'm going to take the same study and I'm going to try and make these two hues stay the same. So that's one way to do it. So I'm going to bring these grounds back up, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and change this to this ground, and I'm going to go ahead okay. Now what I want to do is I want to make these look the same, and right now this one looks darker and this one looks lighter. This one has a little more yellow, this one has a little bit more of the cyan in it. So I kind of know from experience if I start changing this one to make it look like this, it's going to have to go darker and then it's going to get too close to my ground. So I'm going to select this one And what I want to do is I want to make it look lighter and more yellow. Okay, so what I can do is select it. I'm going to come up here, and the first thing I'm going to do is this would be like adding white to it. So if you're mixing it, you'd be adding white, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the shift key and pull these up a little bit, and it starts pulling the value up. But you can still see that it's not really the right hue. What I need to do is add some yellow to it. All right, so while it's selected, I'm going to add some yellow. All right, I'm getting close. I still need to lighten it a little bit. They're pretty similar. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you when I bring this over. Look how different they are. So this is the problem where you've got two different hues and you make them look the same. And again, it has to do with the ground relationship, right? So we come back here. They're not perfect. I could mess around with it, but there you go. Same color. Look at that. Looks different, and two different colors look the same. So you're not gonna do this digitally. You're gonna do it in Paint, but that's the basic theory, and that's it.